Alright, g'day everyone and welcome to Terra Invicta. This is a demo of a game that I have been waiting on for a while. It's a hard sci-fi grand strategy game that's being produced by Pavonis Interactive, and it's an absolute cracker. You'll be able to play a demo of this game starting next week, but they've been kind enough to pass out the demo build to me early so I can show it off to you. I've been in the beta group for this game for a while, so hopefully, despite not being great at it, I can show you around the title and help you find your feet in the demo that you're going to be playing later. So Terra Invicta is a hard sci-fi strategy game that asks the question, if an alien ship crash landed on Earth on the 1st of October 2022, and pretty soon after we found out that we were both not alone in the universe but also not alone in our solar system, how would we react, how would we respond, and how would we survive? It's a game that starts very much about political maneuvering, economic management and conflict on the planet Earth, but as the game goes on, to say the map is large would not exactly be an exaggeration. It's a pretty detailed modeling of our solar system with realistic orbits, some impressive rocket physics, and a great commitment to, well, the hard sci-fi genre. But because this is an incredibly deep game, rather than giving you the full elevator pitch early on, what I thought I'd do is jump into the demo, play through it a little bit, show how I play the game, and basically explain game elements as I go, rather than trying to explain what everything you see on the screen is straight out. So, first point when you start the game to realize is that you don't play a nation in Terra Invicta. You don't play a country. You play a faction, you play an idea, you play an organization. There are 7 factions in Terra Invicta, all of which are playable in the main game, only one of which is playable in the demo. Each faction represents an idea of how we should respond to the discovery of aliens, and later on to the discovery that, maybe they're not the nicest people ever. The Resistance basically has a really simple goal, which is to prevent humanity being dominated by the aliens. They intend to resist. There's no ideology or goal beyond that. They are simply a faction that is interested in defending Earth and human autonomy. And you interact through, as an organization, you interact with the world through agents, through operatives, your counselors. You start the game with 2 automatically generated for you, and then you have 2 open recruit spots as the game begins. You can go up to as many as 6. This is basically an RPG light system for each of these counselors. They're modeled as basically as real people. They gain experience and they level up attributes, they gain traits, but each one is relatively unique in the sense that they all have some combination of their career path, their starting statistics, their traits, and then how you choose to level them up. The interesting thing I find about Terra Invicta is not just that you have attributes which determine how good they are at various things, or traits which modify how they do their job, but based on the job of the character, they have very different missions they can do. That is, not every counselor can do everything. Dawn Atkins here, she's a diplomat, so as you would expect, she has a lot of missions that are focused on influencing nations, contacting and negotiating with other factions, or even turning other counselors to your side, or in the sense of getting them to give away information. If you go over and you try and recruit, and I show you someone like, the spy will be a good example, this spy has very limited ability to interact with nations. He can't use the Control Nation mission. What he can do is do things like coup d'etats, assassinations, extractions, stealing technology. So not only does each individual have their own traits which modify how they operate, they also have their own limited sense of missions. We'll talk more about counselors as we go through the game, because I could do an entire video breaking down just how these things work. It's actually quite a deep and complex system, and it does add a lot to the game. So, when you drop into the game, all you have to your name, you don't have influence over a single nation, all you have is a little bit of cash, a little bit of influence, a little bit of ops. This represents your ability to do like black ops, so it's mercenaries, cells, people who can go out and do black ops. It's a resource you spend there. You've got a little bit of that in the bank, and absolutely no nations or influence to your name, and a UFO has crashed randomly somewhere in the world, and the game tells you to go investigate the alien crash. So, if you are 99% of people, I suspect what you would do is, if you're playing the tutorial, which I am not, I'm sure lots of people will be playing the tutorial. I'm going to skip it, if that's okay by everyone. Is you'd click the Investigate Alien Activity mission, and you'd go do exactly what the game says, which is you give your counselor a mission to go and investigate the alien crash site. Terra Invicta is a pausable real-time game in a sense, but every week at the start of the game and every fortnight a little later on, the game does pause so you can give missions to your counselors. Counselors complete one mission per cycle, whether that be a week or a fortnight, depends on the stage of the game. So you can assign everyone one mission per tick, essentially. If you're me, what you're going to do is you're not going to do that at all. You're not going to investigate the crash site. The crash site's not going anywhere. Instead, you're going to focus on the goal of the first frantic phase of the game. One thing you're going to need, no matter what faction you are, is you're going to need money, you're going to need influence, you're going to need scientists and research, and the source of these things are nations. Nations are modeled in quite significant detail in Terra Invicta, and the way you basically gain access to a lot of these resources in the early game, including their armies, their researchers, their budgets, is by gaining influence over nations. Nations are split into these circles here. These are called control points, and these represent different centers of power within a nation. So if I click over here on Egypt, if I control this point, I control the security apparatus of Egypt. That will be giving me control over 2 of Egypt's 6 investment points per month. We'll talk about those later. So we control about a third of the economy. We'd be getting 0.28 money funding per month just from this control point, and we get 5.9 science per month. If we control this one here, this is the ruling party, which gives us similar sort of bonuses, and the executive. The executive in every nation is different, so different nations have different bonuses and different roles on these squares. If I go over to the United States, for example, this one is the financial sector, identity blocks, corporations, mass media, the legislature, Congress, and the executive, so the White House. And these have their own bonuses. So, for example, controlling the mass media means that where does it say? There is bonus to public campaign missions in the nation. So it's easier to get popular opinion missions done in the United States if you control the media. Controlling the executive goes a step further. I'll show that off once I actually do it. So the first step in Terra Invicta is to race to control certain nations on the map. Nations are controlled.
Ready for orders.
Easy to just show this. You use the Control Nation mission. It's a mission based on the persuasion stat of your councillor, and you can see these percentages. That's the chance that if I send this councillor here and hit Control Nation, that I'm going to seize the targeted circle. You can't take the executive until you have at least one other circle under control. The way you boost your success in Terra Invicta is you spend resources, doubling every time, so 1, then 2, then 4, then 8 of the relevant resource to give yourself 1 extra bonus point each time. You can see your resolutions down the bottom here. So I get 6 points for Persuasion 6. Popular support, Media Darling is one of her traits. Ethical is one of her traits. And that gives us our success chance. The key here is that the larger a nation is in terms of its economy, the harder it is to control. So if you click on China, which has got the largest economy in the game, because Terra Invicta uses purchasing power parity GDPs, I have a 0% chance of success. And if I roll this all the way up and spend almost all the influence I have, then I'm going to end up with a 1% chance to seize control of one of China's 6 control points, which is in this case the defense sector. Not a great idea. So Terra Invicta forces you to make trade-offs. It's really easy to go over here and control Zimbabwe, for example. I would have a 77% chance of controlling the only control point in Zimbabwe straight off the bot on my first turn. And in some ways this is okay. We'll talk about control point limits later on, but basically the more nations you control, you're spending up to a certain capacity, and beyond that point you have to start spending influence to maintain them. And the smaller a nation is, the cheaper each of these CPs are. The problem is, if I control Zimbabwe, all I get for my trouble is, well, 14.1 research and 2.9 investment points, a GDP of $35 billion. It's not going to go very far. It's got no space program, it's got no mission control, it's got no regular funding capacity, it's not going to give you a whole lot. Sorry, my microphone cut out there for a moment. Bandicam doesn't recognize that Terra Invicta is a game yet, so I'm having to use full screen recording mode, and it's just a little unreliable. Anyway, because Terra Invicta is a very complicated game, and because I want to show you something a little bit interesting, I'm going to actually target Europe at the start of the game. Europe is an interesting candidate. Collectively, among the European Union member nations, there's a relatively large economy, there's a lot of research points, not as much military might or things like that, but because the nations are individually smaller, and because of the way nations interact with one another, there's huge potential here if you strike early enough. Let me demonstrate. So, if I take Dawn and go look over at the United States, she has a 1% chance of seizing a position in the United States. 19% chance in France, which is good, but still, you know, not great. And she's probably our best influence with this media darling trait. This media darling trait, by the way, means she's got +3 persuasion, so she's actually persuasion 9, as long as she's in a nation which is at least democracy level 6. This might seem like gibberish right now, but trust me, it'll come together as we start to play. So, when nations neighbor each other, you can get an influence bonus by controlling control points in their neighbors. And if they're in a federation, you get a bonus for controlling control points in the federation. And the only 2 federations at game start are the Eurasian Union for Russia and the European Union for Europe. So what I'm going to do early on is I'm going to start picking off control points in some of the less economically developed European states and use those to get the bonuses I need to hopefully grab France, Germany, and even though it doesn't start in the EU, we're going to eventually go for some reverse Brexit here. We're going to consider going for the United Kingdom, I think. So I'm going to look at the control points, do some numbers, and then I'm going to show this off. Alright, so how do we do this? Well, okay, so we've got the Benelux here. Terra Invicta, out of necessity, trust me, has to group up some small states into larger political entities. Trust me, it's important. It's not Terra Invicta saying your country doesn't exist. It's just because of the way countries work, trust me, it's important that they aggregate some of these. So the Alpine states and the Benelux look like good first possibilities. So what we might do is we might drop a control nation with 2 influence on the Alpine states, because that'll give us borders with a couple of other countries. And then we've got Ruina Tian. She's also persuasion 9, so she's pretty good. It's pretty safe to pinch off the Czech Republic. So let's get both of the ones in the Czech Republic, because that'll let us close out the ones over here in the Alpine states as well, and start racking up some EU control points. So once you're happy with that, you hit assignments, and we unpause the game. Spacebar to unpause, by the way. The war in Ukraine is, of course, ongoing at game start, it assumes, in the month of October. The first event you'll get is this one. This one always happens. It's called the UN Security Council meets to discuss the alien arrival. The hoped-for show of international unity did not materialize. Russia, China, and the United States accuse each other of hiding knowledge about the alien crash and preventing full access to the site. We have the opportunity to shape events to our advantage and even make our case directly to the nations of the world. So, you have 3 options here. Remain in the shadow, nothing happens. Quietly steer support to the resistance, you get 25 influence, you get a small opinion boost around the world. So more people in countries like you, the more they like you, the easier it is to take over their CPs. If 50% of the popular opinion in a country likes you, it's going to be very easy to take over the country. And then finally, you can deliver the manifesto to the world. This gives you even more opinion and 50 influence, but all the other factions find out an awful lot about you. They find out where your agents are, and if they want to, it means they can come after you. My observation is, let's do it. Like, be proud and see who else reveals themselves.
If we only convince them we are worthy.
Okay, so the Academy has revealed themselves. So, the Academy, these are the idealists, in my view. These are going to be Perun's explanation. These are the idealists. So they basically believe that violence is kind of wrong, and that humanity should be able to eventually engage with the aliens as equals. So, not surrender or submit to them, not be enemies, not destroy them, but we should be able to basically shake hands and find a way to be friends and allies with them. Looks like they're the only ones who went public. We also get the one humanity event, which is people being like, oh shit, there are aliens, and as a result, all nations cleave a little bit closer together.
We've gained significant
Alright,
support.
so we've succeeded. This is your mission success or failure menu. So it says, we've gained 1 control point in the Czech Republic.
We've got our people.
We got the second one in the Czech Republic.
We've gained
And we got the one in the
support.
Alpine states. Great. But of course, one of our councillors has been spotted, and I'm going to do absolutely nothing about that. So here we are. Now we control both spots in the Czech Republic. This means that Czechia is basically ours. If Czechia had an army, it doesn't, then we could use it. We can control its relations now. Once you control the executive, we can go into the diplomacy. We can propose diplomacy to various nations around the world. We can go into the priorities tab, and we can control how Czechia spends its money. We're going to adjust this later on, but we're going to focus on this initial grabbing of nations first, because only 7 days is passing in game time every time I do one of these resolution phases. Let's focus on gaining control first, and then I'll explain the economic system, one thing at a time. Alright, so we now have another phase. We're going to be able to assign our people again, but we also have 78 influence because we just did that event, which means we can hire a 4th councillor, and I reckon you should. For this early rush, what I'm really looking for, and we might fire these people later, is I'm looking for someone who has a really good control nation persuasion spread, and this sociopathic executive, what a combination, even though she costs 60 influence, looks like the best of an average bunch. Miss Zhang here looks really promising. She's got 6 persuasion, she has some influence income, she's an opinion leader, which means that persuasion 6 is actually persuasion 8 in the EU. I can live with ethical. She's 30, which means in the full game she's not going to die of old age, probably. But in the demo that only goes for 7 years, that's not really a concern. The problem is she doesn't have control nation. She doesn't have that mission. She doesn't know how to go into the halls of power and convince political leaders to come on side. This executive over here does, maybe because she's got experience lobbying or influencing, but she knows how to go in and convince or compromise an executive or a legislature or a business community in order to support your faction. So we're going to recruit this executive. And then, what are we going to do in terms of countries? So, the real goal here has to be at minimum France, because I'm sorry, Germany, as I said, France is the leader of the European Union in Terra Invicta, and you'll see why that matters if I manage to pull this off. If I don't, it'll be kind of funny. So what we need is France eventually, but we should continue building our national band around here for the moment. So, Antonella, she's relatively good. But I think our best ones, because of their trait bonuses, are still Rowena, who we can give 2 influence, and Dawn, I think, has the very significant bonus of media darling and ethical, which makes her actually pretty damn impressive. So we'll use them to take the 2 remaining CPs in the Alpine states. Actually, no, we don't need to do that. Remember what I said earlier. You can't take the executive of a country unless you've got one of the smaller bits, unless it's the only CP in a nation. So what we should really be doing here is pinching off CPs, not including the executives, to basically block the other factions out. So we'll take Dawn, and we'll actually get started on the Benelux, because that's a nation that's going to exert influence on both France and Germany, which are very big prizes that we really want in our nascent EU. So we're going to take a 73% roll on the Benelux. Vincenar's not particularly talented, so he's going to go to Denmark, because Denmark's small enough to give him an 80% chance. Antonella, she's 8. She's pretty good. I reckon she can get started in Poland. She'd have pretty good odds in Poland. If I'm willing to spend 4 influence, I can make it 77. So maybe that's what I do. Maybe that's what I do. Alright, so we can just hit confirm assignments. Okay, we need to select a management team. So this is, you get to pick certain bonuses at the start. This is basically, do you want extra monthly influence, monthly research, monthly ops, or finances investors? Basically, the early game advantage, I think, is with influence, because it's the most valuable thing early. Operators is the hardest to get, so I'm going to pick up some operations income, because otherwise I don't have any. Because I've got no mercenaries or agents or whatever on my roster who are the sort of people who would normally give you ops income, and I have no organizations that give me ops income on my roster. So the days are passing, enemy councillor detected, I don't really care, so there's someone over there in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan, by the way, is an absolute gem of a nation. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it in the walkthrough here, but there are certain nations and CPs in Terra Invicta that are absolute gems. They're amazing deals for what they are. That is, how easy they are to take and how many control points they take, and how much of your control limit they take. Because in bigger nations, control points cost more to maintain than they do in small nations once you hit over your limit. So Kazakhstan's a really cheap nation to take over. But because it's got the Baikonur Cosmodrome, it's got a huge boost income. There are a lot of old Soyuz rockets there. It's one of the best ways humanity still has to lift stuff into orbit. So Kazakhstan is an early target for a lot of countries. My strategy for Kazakhstan's a little bit different, but we'll see if we get there. Anyway, let's unpause. Okay, so we got Denmark, we got Poland, we got Alpine 2, and we got a perfect run. Fantastic. So we're starting to see this sea of resistance control points in Europe, which is fantastic. So if we take one more in the Benelux, Denmark is now protected, it's safe, no one's going to take it from us. Poland, if we take one more, it's safe. Czechia, I already took both. The Alpine states are secure. Fantastic. So where does that leave us now? I think we still have to secure the remaining Benelux point, but we're getting to the point, yeah, we're starting to get the point where we've got these adding bonuses. We can probably safely go for France, and if we can fill up France...
Bring them to our side. Ready for orders.
I'm not sure I want to spend that much, but I could double France. I think instead what I will do is I'll protect the Benelux.
Bringing them to our side.
Vincina, you're not talented at doing particularly like large or complex nations, but I can get you to start blocking smaller nations. So let's you grab Sweden to make sure no one grabs the executive point. And Antonella, I really want Poland to be in my special EU, so I think that's the go. Yeah, look, I've stared at this screen unreasonably long, so here we go. Cross your fingers. Notice I still haven't gone and seen the UFO crash site, which I should do at some point. Alright, so Sweden is now safe.
We're taking over.
Benelux is safe. Poland is safe. But we failed to control France. We rolled a 75 on our 74, so we still have no CPs in France. That's okay. We can live with that. We can live with that. Sorry, I had to take a quick phone call, but I believe I was just lamenting the fact that we don't have France. But no one else has any presence in Germany, the UK, or France yet, so hope springs eternal. And we've started to branch out a little bit around here. I'd like to get Italy, I'd like to get Spain, France, and Germany. I'd like to start finishing off this Western European set. So I think we do continue with France at this point. We've got better odds in Germany, but France is the one we absolutely need to have. And I'm willing to spend up... I think I'm willing to spend 4 influence for a 75% shot there.
Your orders?
I'll do the same here, but I'll go to 8 influence again for a 75% shot.
At your service.
Vincina is the Lord of low-hanging fruit, I think, so do I want to secure Finland, the Northern Balkans, Slovakia, or Hungary? I think... or the Baltics. I'm looking for these low-cost 2 CP ones where I can block the executive one relatively easily. Portugal's also over there as an option. I think in terms of just geographical position, I'm going to grab the Balkans to put pressure on Italy.
Establishing our presence.
So that works. And then I've got Antonella. Antonella is pretty good. Do I want to go to 8 influence, spend down 8 influence in order to try and get a 3rd CP in France and just lock France down? Or do I want to try and make sure that one of these other countries comes into the fold? I think I'm going to save a little bit of influence, and I think I'm going to grab Hungary.
In place.
Alright, I'm happy with that. One thing I realized what I hadn't done is gone and showed you councillors before we rolled the dice, just for a moment of tension. Organizations, let's talk organizations quickly. Your councillors have this stat called administration. So a lot of these are self-explanatory. Persuasion, investigation, espionage, they do basically what you'd think they do based on the stat. Administration's an interesting one. It means how many organizations your person can control. At any given time, there are these organizations in the marketplace, and there are other ways to get them as well. Some are bought for cash, some are bought for influence and have restrictions on them. And these are basically companies, organizations, or government bodies that you can compromise, that you can bring into your New World Order organization. So like the German Foreign Intelligence Service is here. To do that, you need 200 influence, and you need to have a government counselor, and you need to have a control point in Germany. You do that, you can bring these guys on board. They have a negative 36 money per month income, but they give you ops income, investigation, espionage, security, and they unlock 3 additional missions that you might not have. Investigation, surveilling, and detaining. So we can fill up a couple of our early slots here. I've just seen Crossing Rivers for Humanity as a company which gives a mixture of science and influence and money and a couple of other things. So I'm going to pick I'm going to pick my executive here because she doesn't have government, so I'm not going to have her administer the government ones. And she, fantastically, she can pick up +2 persuasion here, plus some more income, which is fantastic. So that'll actually increase her persuasion to 11 and make her odds of succeeding in her movement into France even better. We do have a bit of a money problem, but nothing that can't be solved once we start taking over countries. Let's confirm assignments.
It has always been true that
and we've encountered Project Exodus. Fantastic. Okay, so Exodus is another faction. They're a bit of a weird one. If you think of most of the factions sitting along a spectrum on how they feel about the aliens, at the one extreme, you've got those people who think the aliens are awesome, and on the others, you think the aliens need to be purged with fire, people who would make the Imperium of Man and 40k proud. Exodus, basically, they want to leave. They're like, well, crap, aliens are here, that is a problem, and the best solution that Project Exodus can come up with is build a really, really large ship and leave, I presume. It just says they want to have an expedition beyond Earth's solar system. They want to run away, which is and you can play them in the full game. So they're, as you can imagine, they're going to have very different objectives to factions that are intending to defend Earth, for example. Alright, we've completed our first technology, which means it's time for me to go in here and show you how technology works. So, there's 2 sorts of technology research in Terra Invicta, and you operate by assigning your research points between them using priority bars. At any given time, there are 3 global technologies in research. These are your big overarching scientific efforts, and all factions can contribute to these technologies, and when they're complete, all factions get that technology. If you contributed the most to a technology, you get to pick which technology goes in that slot next. So I'm not sure if we're going to be able to win one of these. I might do that, a 50-50 split with this slot, and then try and win this slot after its current round. Actually, no, I'm going to try and win this slot after its current round. And also there's advantages in terms of being contributing more to a technology. We'll talk more about that later. Down here you've got council engineering projects. If this is science, this is engineering. This is stuff that is only specific to your faction. It only gives a bonus to you. So if you're greedy, you can spend all your research down here, but you're not going to be pushing everyone down the tech tree. The tech tree, by the way, is huge. It is so huge that there's a button you need to press in order to make it load the detailed version, because by default, it just shows you the top level text, the global text. If you want to see the projects that sit underneath this, hit this and it will load. It's a massive tech tree. Anyway. That's a little bit aside into how research works. What I'm doing to open with is I'm doing management research. Management research increases the number of countries that you can have under your control before you start playing influence upkeep on them. I'm also putting a little bit of contribution into one of these global techs up here. Alright, so we've got Hungary, we've got the North Balkans, we failed one in France, we succeeded one in France.
Our supporters are in place.
Okay. So we've got 1 CP in France, we've still got no one in Germany or the UK, so there's still hope. And is anyone in Russia? Because I have ambitions for Russia too. Russia is an interesting one. Russia, there's no way to get Euro bonuses on it. You basically need to brute force your way in with influence and public opinion. Russia doesn't start up with particularly strong opinions in favor of any faction. Russia is interesting because it's got a lot of things wrong with it. The economy is not super developed. It starts off at war. Its education and democracy scores aren't quite EU standards, got a little bit of unrest, but Russia has Well, it's got 30 strategic nuclear barrages, and Terra Invicta is a game where nuclear weapons are modelled very brutally. Nuclear weapons, this is a game where if you go to the global statistics screen, there is a figure for how many excess stratospheric aerosols are in the air. That is, how much extra dust has been thrown up in the atmosphere. Because in this game, if you launch nukes, you are going to destroy that. You can destroy the global economy, reduce the population massively. You can bring about doomsday. And there's two nations specifically that have enough ordnance to do it at game start. That is the United States and Russia. So controlling the nuclear arsenals of these countries is very significant. It's also why little nations like Israel, which Terra Invicta believes has a strategic nuclear barrage, which the Academy is currently taking over, can be really significant. They're quick to grab and they give you access to a couple of nuclear weapons. I'm not going to talk about nuclear weapons in episode 1. We're going to get a couple if we get access to France. If we can get the UK, there's 2 more there. But you see there's 5 nuclear barrages between those 2 countries. The United States starts with 28. The Russians start with 30. Great. So, we should be in a pretty good position now. We've got Antonella now doing persuasion at 11, so you can see I'm starting to rack up decent scores in France. So I can go up to 80% in France with her. Rowena can also, if I'm willing to spend enough influence, which I am, go up to 80%. If I do the 2 of those, that'll get me the 2 securable CPs in France, which puts me in a great position. Vincenar, again, is probably good for hitting softer targets. And I'm really tempted to start going for Italy here, because Italy is 2.6 billion worth of GDP. It's 4 CP, so it's a little bit of effort to start securing, but I'm tempted to start on it, and then I think we really have to secure. It's a question of, do we go for Germany or the UK next? The UK is harder to influence, but we'd have a decent chance of getting there. I'm tempted to say we start on the UK, even though it's going to cost us a crap ton of influence. Because if we can get the UK involved, and there's a lot of things there that are of use. There's 2 strategic nuclear weapons. There's an army. Germany has a army that is too small and not deployable enough to be represented in TI, whereas the UK only has 1 army compared to the United States, which I think starts with 5, and they have higher tech levels and stuff like that. But the UK is there, and it is an army, as is France, so it's a little bit of military power there. Am I sure about that? Sure I don't want to double up on Italy or start working on Germany? You know, I'm going to roll for the UK. Alright, so I think it's worth stopping for a moment just to see what other nations are setting up. So it looks like there's a quick way to do this. Let's go to the diplomacy menu and see who's controlling what. So Humanity First has full control. That means they have the executive control over Senegambia, Afghanistan, Iceland and Namibia. The Institute has taken Guinea, El Salvador, Laos, Nicaragua, Zimbabwe and the CAR. The Servants, I have a lot to say about the Servants, have Honduras, the Pacific States, Mozambique, Botswana, Armenia and Guyana. Protectorate you can see there. A lot of presence in Asia, and a little bit of Africa, and North Korea. So this means that the Academy has access to nuclear weapons already, and Exodus has Georgia, Madagascar, and Mauritania. It's not showing nations where they have influence, but not the executive. And no one's got any CPs in the big boys yet. India is still empty, China is still empty, and the United States is still empty. India is also another interesting one. Its GDP is small enough that it is a goal that you can go for, and if you can then modernize it, I think India's got great potential, but it's certainly not, and it's got a lot of armies. It starts with 4 armies. They don't have navies, which means they can't move overseas. They can only move land province to land province, but it does start with 4 armies and 2 nuclear barrages. So what are we going to do?
Ready for my mission.
I think we need to lock down France. I'll take an 83% chance on France.
Where to?
Dawn. Or actually, do I want to use Antonella to crack the harder nut that is the UK?
Taking control.
Let's use Dawn.
Acknowledged.
No, let's use Rowena.
I'm here.
I'll take a 79% chance on controlling that CP in France. Then we're pretty safe. I'd like to block Italy,
Taking control.
and that means do
Standing
we
by.
want to double? Do we want to double expand UK, or do we want to start Germany? I think I want to start
We'll be
Germany.
running this place in no time.
Alright, confirm assignments, up to speed, let's go. I just stopped there because I thought I should look over the other nations a little bit, and then I'll explain the economy once we've got a couple more nations down. You can see what I mean about the starting phase of the game is a scramble, because if as other nations start to come in, they can
Our
block us
supporters
off,
are in
and if we
place.
don't have full control, that's a problem for the plan I'm trying to pull off. Okay, so we got one in Germany,
failed to take control.
failed the UK,
Our
we got Italy.
supporters are in place.
Okay, so
got
France
our
is
people
safe,
friends.
Italy is almost safe. El Salvador's undergone a coup d'etat. Fantastic. I'm
At your
not
service.
immediately concerned. I am very concerned that I need all
Bringing
the
them
CPs in
on
the
board.
UK and Germany, but
Reporting
we're
in.
getting close to a minimum viable product on this strategy.
What's the op?
Because if the strategy fails as I show off the game, I might look silly.
We'll be
We
running
will go
this place
inspect
in
that
no time.
alien
Ready.
crash site soon. But right
Ready.
now I am just frantically focused on what I need to do in order to lock as many countries as possible in Europe down. We've lost Finland. The servants have gotten a CP in Finland, which means I'm basically out of luck there. They've also gone into the southern Balkans. That's a little bit of a problem, but not as much of a problem as you'd think, because we have other options there. So I can either double up in Germany, which I think I will, because Germany is mission critical,
Ready for my mission.
which leaves me going one in the UK, hoping no one goes for the UK immediately. Italy should hopefully be secure, which means how greedy do we want to be, Dawn? Do we want to double up and secure Germany completely? I think that's what we
Bringing
want to
them
do.
to our
This will
side.
make Germany secure. Let's go. And then we can start taking the executive CPs and tying this all together. Alien fleet detected. Fantastic. So, Terra Invicta subscribes to the idea that there's very little stealth in space. So, as soon as humanity starts getting its act together, and you can see we were the biggest contributor, so we get to pick the next research topic. So I could research orbital shipbuilding, so being able to build ships in space, space tourism, vacuum electrostatics, deep space propulsion concepts. All of these are interesting. Orbital HABs, that's interesting. So that's being able to build proper space stations. There are two space stations at the beginning, the ISS and the Tiangong. Once you have this, you can build your own. Actually, sorry, that's outposts, not HABs. That's about being able to go to other planets eventually, so that's interesting. I'm going to go advanced chemical rocketry. We're not alone in Skywatch being researched, so there is an alien ship that we have detected with our existing technology. It's currently transferring to Earth orbit. Its designation is Victor 1. There's some critical stats. It has a huge combat power. We have obviously nothing at all, so it's transferring to Earth and it will basically do whatever it wants. We don't know who the aliens are, what they want. We just know that we've detected a ship, which is different from the one that crashed earlier. I also should think if I want to start going into Russia soon, but at the moment I'm just very focused on Europe. Come on, EU.
Our presence is growing.
Germany.
We're taking over.
Italy secure.
We're
UK
taking
almost. But Germany isn't
We
quite
failed to
secure
take
yet
control.
because we need one more to be safe. Humanity First has gotten into Slovakia, so Slovakia is lost to us. Humanity First is building this arc in Far Eastern Europe. They're now one of the two CPs in Ukraine,
over. Where do you need
but
me?
we're getting close. So I reckon we take another shot at the
Establishing
UK. That'll make the UK safe. We keep
Reporting
one
in.
person in Germany
Acknowledged.
to keep Germany safe.
Putting our
81%
people
chance
in
we'll do it.
place.
Ready for my mission.
Vincina can get started on Spain. That's a nice 2 billion economy that we might be able to add. And it only takes about as much effort as going for Romania. Norway and Finland are both lost, so that is what it is. So let's get started on
Establishing
Spain.
our presence.
Where do you need me?
And Dawn. Hopefully everyone else is able to do their jobs. and you're not good enough to start on Russia, so we're going to get you to double up in Spain,
Taking
and hopefully
control.
that's enough to basically bring it home, I think. Let me think about this for a moment. I think I'm going to do it. I was thinking about... Oh, and the Protectorate. Okay, so the Protectorate, led by this guy, Kiran Banerjee. This guy... these guys think the Munich conference was a great idea. So basically their idea is that we should surrender to the aliens. They don't worship them or anything, but we should try and surrender so we don't all get blown up. The Initiative are evil capitalists who think that the alien invasion is a great opportunity to make money. They're not particularly concerned. Like, they'll defend Earth if it's profitable. Really, they're in it for really they're in it to make a buck. Great chaps. And of course, in the full game, you will be able to play as them. I don't know what their goal will be, other than making lots of money, but there you go. And here's Humanity First.
They are demons incarnate. They and the traitors who support them will
And
face our judgment.
Hans Castillo, his opinion comes through from the quote. So basically, whereas the resistance is like, we'll do what we can to resist the aliens if they push us, we will respect humans and human autonomy and human choice. Humanity First is like, no, we will smash the aliens, and humans who don't assist or who act, or worse, actively help the aliens will also get smashed. And they view us as like the naive version of themselves.
We still lack support.
Okay, so we lost one in Spain, we got one in Spain. UK is safe.
Presence is growing.
Humanity First has finished
Our
Skywatch,
supporters are in
and Germany
place.
is safe. Fantastic. So we've built a pretty good, we're building a pretty good framework for a European Union here, and we're coming close to our control point limit, which I'm
At your
okay with.
service.
So if Vincent finishes Spain,
Establishing control.
are there any
Acknowledged.
nations left in the
Ready
EU
for
that we
orders.
can secure before it's too late? Romania stands out as maybe the only option that is left unsecured, and we need to grab 2
We'll be
CPs for
running
that.
this place in
So if we
time.
send Ruina
Standing by.
and Dawn to
Reporting
Romania,
in. We'll bring this
Actually, we
nation
don't-
to our side.
we don't want Antonella.
Ready for
Antonella,
orders.
we're going to need that last CP in France.
We'll be running this place in no time.
Dawn,
Where to?
Romania.
Establishing control.
And then, so if this works, we will have the UK, France, Spain, Germany, the Alpine States, which is Austria, Switzerland, Italy, the Northern Balkans, Hungary, Romania, Poland, Denmark, Sweden as our proto-base of power. And you'll see in a minute what I do with that. But let's roll the dice one more time and then start the project. At which point we probably start looking at influencing Russia. Oh, we can now do clandestine cells. So, clandestine cells. This technology allows you to recruit an additional counselor. Once it pops up, my personal opinion, deprioritize everything else and put maximum priority into it. Because as you can see, every counselor gets 1 action per turn. So the
We've
more
gained
counselors you have, the
significant
better.
support.
All right, we have
We're
full
taking
control
over.
of France. We've got 2 in
taking
Romania. We failed in Spain, so
Failed to
that's
take
still up in
control.
the air. But we have France. Okay, so we now have full control of the nation of France. This means we can do a lot of things. We now control their army, so we can move France's army. France's army has a navy, so it can move overseas. It's pretty good. Starts at a good technology level. Military tech 4.3. That's among the highest in the game. The US is 4.5, and that is, I believe, the highest. France also starts with nukes, so if I press this button up, I now have this button up here rather, which means that I can launch nukes at people. Don't do it, it's a bad idea, unless, well, there are certain circumstances where you might be able to justify it. We also now have full control over the French economy, which we will adjust in a moment, and we can adjust their relations. This is important. You can change what nations they are allied with, which nations they're rivals with, and we can control who they go to war with, which is another thing that's going to be relevant. For now, let's quickly adjust the economy. So you can adjust the economy for nations. Every CP you control controls a share of that nation's economy, which you can adjust by adjusting the shares. So if a nation is split, So for example, let me pick Hungary. I can only control half of the Hungarian economy, and I can divide it between these various priorities. Different factions have different preferences. The AI is reasonably smart, but it also has different preferences. I'm going to adjust the way that I do this. So the way you do that is you go Design, Priority Template. I'm going to enter a new template called Perun Utopia, and I'm going to adjust it so we spend basically like this. And for the EU, we're not going to spend anything on military. This is military research, not building new armies. So you can build new armies and navies, or you can improve your military tech. We're not going to improve the military tech in the EU for the start. We're going to focus on getting the economy going, welfare to bring inequality down, and also welfare covers reducing carbon dioxide emissions, and knowledge, which improves your government score, education, that kind of thing. We're going to focus on that, and a little bit of unity, which keeps everyone together. So we're going to save this as the Perun Utopia. We're going to apply that globally and set as the default, which means every nation I control starts with this, and I can adjust from there. So France is now spending 27% of its economy on making the economy bigger, 18% on welfare, that's a reasonable amount, 27% on knowledge, 9% on unity, that's a bit much. I'm going to bring that down to 5%. Boost and mission control we're also going to bring down just to start with. Let's make that 5% boost, 2% mission control. Simple enough. So that's the French economy now. We should start closing out the control of these nations. We really need Spain to be finished.
Them to our side.
Antonella
Ready to go.
can grab the last CP in the UK, because that's a relatively hard one to
Bringing
grab.
them to our
We'll
side.
need that.
Reporting in.
There are no spare European
Acknowledged.
nations to grab, so we're going to start finishing. So we'll grab the last one in the
Establishing our
Benelux, and to show off my
Standing by.
plan, we're going to set national policy. Actually, we'll do one more cycle, then we'll do that. We'll try and claim the last CP
Establishing
in
our
Germany.
presence.
Then I'll show what my plan is, because we should be over our CP limit if this works. Servants have started appearing in the Balkans and in
Our
Greece.
supporters are in place.
Okay, we've got full control of the Benelux. An alien fleet
We've
is
got
now
our
in
people
orbit.
in
We've got
place.
the UK. We've got
Our
Spain,
supporters are in
Germany.
place.
All right,
We've
I'm
gained
feeling
significant
good.
Support.
So we've now controlled. We now also have control of the United Kingdom's army. Fantastic. Now, if I'm right, here we are. We've now gotten to this point. Control point influence summary. Monthly control point maintenance 13.1. So you have up to a certain number of points worth of nations that you can keep under control at once. Beyond that, you start paying increasing amounts of upkeep. The bigger a nation is, the more it costs per CP. So some nations are like 4 cost per CP, some are 3, some are 2. Don't worry about the math so much. Here's the basic rule. It means that small nations are cheaper to control than large nations, but not so cheap that they are more efficient in terms of how much economy and stuff you can fit in a nation. Big nations like the United States are much more efficient per upkeep cost to get economic value than small nations in general. So, what I am going to try and do here is exploit the EU unification mechanic, and it applies also to things like the Eurasian Union and other unions you can create in the game, which is that if you have full political control of one nation and full political control of another nation, and they're both in the same union, and you're within your diplomacy cooldown, you can do this. So let's take Vincenar, and let's get him to set national policy in France while I stop that beeping sound. I stopped the beeping, and I'm glad I did stop to check after doing that beeping, which is I remembered that nations start the game with diplomacy cooldown. So Terra Invicta represents the fact that people have reasonably long memories, and it takes time to explain to the public why two nations are becoming better friends. Everyone in the EU starts allied with each other, but there's this limit that you need to wait until the 29th of December 2022 before you can improve relations. So we're not really going to be able to do that. Oh no, we can improve relations with the UK, so that's alright. That's what we will do instead. What else are we going to do? I think,
I'm here.
even though it's going to put us over limit, I'm tempted to send Antonella to start on Russia. The other option is we try and start securing influence in Canada to get a bonus to influencing the United States. That's the other option that is available to us. Ooh, that's a tough one. Or we can go into Mexico. I think I'm going to start on Canada and play for the United States because, as I said before, mostly all I want with Russia is the executive command point.
Putting our people
So I'm going to
in
go
place.
for Canada there.
Ready.
Rowena,
Where to?
you also secure Canada, probably.
Bringing them to our side.
And
Your
Dawn,
orders.
you can finally go investigate that alien activity. Now that's happening. Alright, let's confirm those assignments. Another UFO has crashed, so we'll go inspect that as well. So I'm now in mid-December. I started in October, and I'm finally doing the thing you're meant to do immediately at the start of the game, which is investigate the alien crash. Now, I'm controlling France, so you spend a little bit of influence, and if you control the executive of a nation, you can do all sorts of things. You can disband armies, you can get rid of nukes, you can cede territory, you can leave federations, you can join federations, declare war, all sorts of stuff. The button I'm interested in here is Federation. I'm undoing Brexit. I control the UK, I control France fully politically, so I'm going to bring the UK back into the European Union. Because aliens are here, and maybe, look, the UK has just decided that since aliens are landing, maybe signing up with the EU is kind of something we're going to do, especially since the EU is about to turn into a bit of a superpower here.
Recon complete.
Great, so we've investigated the alien crash site, so we obtained some surveillance records, small quantity of debris, and we get 20 influence and 20 science. That's something. We can now do that project, but we're going to wait to do clandestine cells first.
Our supporters are in place.
Alright, we've got Canada
Presence is
secured,
growing.
which is fantastic. We're going to start paying a lot of upkeep now, so our influence income is dropping, but that's okay, because soon we're going to hit that 29 December cutoff, and we can start enacting the master plan.
Your orders.
So Antonella's chance to gain points in the United States, it's still not high, but it's going up. I think the next step is we're going to have to secure some control points in Mexico
Establishing our presence.
to again put more presence on the United States. The other thing we can
Ready to
start
go.
doing is we can start improving public
do you need
opinion
me?
in the United States.
I'm here.
At your service.
Is another option that's available to us.
Ready.
I think only one of our people, Rowena,
for my
who's an
mission.
activist, basically she can convince people in the United States to like us more, this public opinion bar here, because the more people in the United States like us,
I will try to
the
sway
better
the
our
public.
CP control
Where to?
plans are going to go. We'll
What's
send
the up?
Dawn after the site,
Your orders?
and Vincenar, not sure what I want to do with Vincenar. Actually, I'll send Vincenar to go check out the
We'll
check out the
recon
crash
site.
site, because Dawn is a little bit
Ready to
better
go.
at talking to people. And Dawn, even though she's not going to have great chances, she can have a go at could have a go at Cuba, or I could grab the Canada's executive point. I think what I'll do is I'll grab the Italian
We'll
top
bring
level.
this nation to our side.
Fantastic. Confirm. Military Science Lab, don't need that. So again, like I said, the demo covers the
will come
first
to our
7
side.
years of the game, which is very, which is going to be Earth focused. But you can see it's only
Recon
29
complete.
December 2022.
We've gained significant support.
We've gained significant
All right, so we
support.
got 1 Mexico point, which means we are now negative on influence income. But that's okay, because it's now the 1st of January, which means, so we've got this problem. We're now way over our cap, essentially. We've got too many nations under control, and as a result, we are bleeding influence all over the place. If we want to keep expanding our influence, we're going to need to lower our costs somehow. So we're going to do it this way. We're going to set national policy in
On my
France,
way to the capital.
What's
and
the
we're
op?
going to set national policy in France.
Time to make our move.
Just make sure I've got how
Reporting
many
in.
nations I've got fully secured. I've got Italy fully secured, Germany fully secured. I've got the Czechs. Let's go Spain.
Bringing them on board.
Ready for orders.
And let's finish off Poland too.
Taking control.
And we can recruit another councillor. Let's do alien signatures and then go back to contributing to this sort of research. I'll start contributing to chemical rocketry. Dial that back to there. We'll still finish it in like a day. Okay, so we've researched alien signatures. So our studies of the crash site determined that a sapient life form survived the crashdown and moved with purpose into the nearby wilderness. We have no footage of the creature, no further sightings. Worryingly, we are receiving reports of strange occurrences in nearby community, including disappearances of both animals and people. So far, we have no hard evidence that these events are related to the alien arrival. But should our agents detect concrete evidence of the abductions, we should investigate immediately. Fantastic, and we have a new goal, which is to research alien origin, because the debris that landed was made of an alloy which was hard and strong, did not match anything that human engineering can reproduce, so it's clear, well, it seems to be likely extraterrestrial in origin. Further, the researchers suspect some fraction of the substance may be extrasolar in origin. That means it comes from outside our solar system. But we've definitely established the majority of the mass in the debris bears unique signatures of our solar system's formation. In all likelihood, this ship was built somewhere within the orbit of our sun. It suggests the aliens have at least one base of operations within or very close to our solar system. Locating it would be a valuable intelligence windfall. So research Skywatch and Deep System Skywatch, which is about getting humanity's space surveillance in order, because it's a big crap, and now we're suddenly mobilizing, and then research the Alien Origin project. We're also unlocking others, which is to successfully engage an alien asset like a landed UFO, but there's nothing like that on the board at the moment. So I'm going to go back to management research, which lets you manage more nations, but really focus on advanced chemical rocketry for the moment. You'll notice that we now have more incomes of things like science, because we're starting to take over nations. Here's the button. This whole strategy that I'm trying to run here is, here's the button. It's 5th January 2023, and I'm sorry, but the European Union, aliens are landing. You know, we've got to act as one in order to hold together, and one way to do that is to start turning the European Union into a federated state. So, European Union and Germany have become one nation, but that's okay. We're also going to add the Italians, and now we have this new nation, the European Union. So the European Union starts combining the various nations that were involved that like this, they cost less to manage than they did individually. So I took 2 additional control points there, but my maintenance cost for nations has gone down. And already I have a nation with 298 research and $10 billion in GDP. So I don't have as much research as America yet, or as much economy as America yet. I've got about half as much. But I was able to assemble it out of little smaller blocks.
Ready.
And I'm not done. Set
Heading
national
to the capital.
policy.
At your service.
Set national
Heading
policy.
to the capital.
Ready for orders.
How many we got? We got Poland and Benelux, and we got 3 ready to go, but let's get 2 others
At your service.
primed. So let's grab the last control point in the Alpine
We'll bring
states.
this nation to our side.
What's the up?
And Antonella, I'm tempted to get started on Russia as always, but you know, Sweden needs to be in this mega EU, doesn't it? Now I'll keep priming Mexico in order to start sandwiching America with neighbor bonus for influence. So let's confirm assignments.
They are here to cleanse
Oh,
us
and we've
of
discovered the servants. I was hoping we discovered them in episode 1. So,
and all who oppose them are enemies of the future.
So Judith Howe. Judith Howe and the servants, they're kind of the other end of the spectrum to Humanity First. Humanity First is, we must kill the aliens and anyone who supports them. The servants are, we must serve the aliens and kill anyone who opposes them. They see the aliens in a religious sense as saviors. Come to cleanse this sick world, to uplift us, they're the superior species, blah, 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 they are our saviors. So, the servants actively support the aliens, is the statement that they've put forward there. So, yeah, they're
Policy
interesting
direction
characters.
complete.
Anyway, we have full control of these nations, they're allied with us, so Spain is going to join the unified European
complete.
Union. Poland, you're in the Central European Union.
Our presence is growing.
We've got the Alpine secured. Cops and robbers, blah blah blah. Oh, is this because you've got a criminal background? Oh, okay, so one of our peoples was a cop and one of our people is a criminal. That reminds me, I'll look at the criminal in a moment. So we can have... They can either all lose a bunch of loyalty, or Rowena can be locked out for 6 mission phases, and Vincenar's going to gain a loyalty. We're going to do that,
We
which
still
means
lack
she's out of mission.
support.
Oh, we didn't get Mexico, that's okay. But it reminds me, Rowena here is a criminal, and as a criminal, we're going to be able to add criminal organizations to her org, which is kind of cool. Right now she has admin 0 though, so we don't really have a lot of options there. We should consider adding, now that we've got a little more money, we should consider adding stuff here as well. But I don't think there's anything good that we can really afford at this point. Reddington looks good for anyone who needs investigation. Does anyone here need investigation? Purge needs espionage. Crackdown needs investigation, so you get Reddington Agency, which will also give us some ops income. And do I want to spend 610 on all that? I think I do. Because it gives its own admin capacity, so there we are. Which means when she comes out, if I level up administration, she has enough admin then to do something like get the Gulf cartels. Yes, you can enlist criminal organizations in order to help you save the world. It's an interesting
Ready
thing.
for orders.
Anyway, our European Union is starting to take shape. We've swallowed up increasing amounts of Europe, but there is more to consume.
Where do you need me?
You probably know where this is going. Antonella's going to continue on that my forlorn
Bringing
hope of
them
trying to
to our
secure
side.
America. No one's moved into Russia
Where
yet.
to?
I'm considering, if I don't
Your
get
orders.
any progress this phase, so if no one else takes a slot in Russia this phase, I'll go into Russia. Vincenar, if you can secure Sweden,
Taking control.
what we'll do,
At your
and how long
service.
until the UK? Oh yeah, the UK we're going to have to wait until December 2023 before we can unify them into this body and make it look even prettier.
Standing by for orders.
But you know,
Your
it is
orders?
what it is. Rowena we can't use because
I'm
she
here.
is locked up, but we
Standing
will set
by.
national policy
Ready.
and we will absorb yet more nations. And once I've sort of built up my EU, I'm going to close it there because I will have revealed a lot of the opening
Mission
mechanisms. I
complete.
don't want this video to be too long. I'll join the Benelux, so let's grab
Cleaning things up.
the Dutch and the Belgians.
We've gained significant
No need to
support.
argue over separatism
We failed
because
to
now they're
take
all part of
control.
one thing, and Mexico is cursed. Alright, I might indulge one more phase.
Time to make our move.
At your service.
And that's to do this. So the Southern Balkan states, this is a nice way for us to close out. The Southern Balkan states don't start the game as in the European Union. Those of you who are familiar with what states probably fit in this block here might understand why that is. But they are claimed by the European Union. They're part of the European Union technically. So, you know, it is what it is. Also, the Southern Balkan states starts with a claim on the Northern Balkan states. There's a lot of claims in Terra Invicta. This is not about, like, this is not a judgment on the game developer's part, but what a claim basically means in this term is if you invade a country that you have a claim on and you conquer it and get to keep it. If you don't have a claim on that country, instead what you do is you throw the government out and you create a new government in that country where all the CPs flip to you. So I'm going to close out by illustrating how war works. So I'm going to go, and also it's because it's the servants and I think they're kind of nuts. So the first thing you do is we declare a rivalry with the Southern Balkan states on behalf of the European Union. The British are allied, so they should come in on this with us.
Ready
And
for
what I'll
my
do
mission.
is I'll double set national policy here.
Heading to the capital.
Acknowledged.
And Antonella, how high can you get with you? You can still only get to 10%. You need to do better.
Establishing
Please,
control.
please get Mexico.
Acknowledged.
So we run it. If you are rivals with a nation and you don't have any crossover allies that would make
Policy
things
direction
complicated,
complete.
you can declare war. So I can declare war on Russia, which is a bad idea, Remember, they have 30 nuclear barrages, or the Southern Balkan states. So the European Union has declared war on the Southern Balkan states. I will now deploy my armies, which have navies attached to them. This little icon here means they have a navy. I will deploy them, and I will attack.
Policy direction complete.
Same time, I will unify to keep bringing my upkeep costs down. So, Switzerland and Austria, you're in. GDP is up to 16 billion.
Our people in place.
Mexico up to 2. And our armies should take about 2 weeks to arrive in Belgrade. At this point, we get the new normal. So at 1st February 2023, what happens is the mission phases that have been every week slow down. It's because people are starting to calm down, so that initial frenetic competition for influence is starting to die down a little bit. So the mission phases slow down. More time passes between orders,
Standing by.
which works perfectly fine for
Where
us.
to?
We're going to try and finish
We'll be running this
controlling
place
Mexico.
in no time.
Acknowledged.
Where do you need me?
Vincenar can
Putting
control
our people
Denmark,
in place.
and Dawn
I'm
can
here.
bring another nation
Ready
into
for
the
orders.
glorious, expanding European Union. And I don't know why I decided to speedrun the EU formation as my strategy. I just find it fun. I think it shows off the diplomacy, unification, and
Mission
war functions
complete.
pretty well, which is one of the reasons why I decided to show it off. So let's unify Sweden into the European Union, which brings our GDP to 17 billion, and we're at 512 research, which means we have now eclipsed the United States in research output, which is fantastic. We know we need Deep System Skywatch, but I'm going to go... You can see there's a lot of technologies. These are social technologies. Arrival, domestic policy, economics. It's about how human society adapts to the fact that there are now aliens around. And I'm going to go for arrival... Probably arrival economics. Okay, so the British have arrived in Belgrade, the French have arrived in Belgrade, and we are now invading. Hopefully the army is strong enough to do it. Belgrade has some rough terrain. Provinces have their own armies that they fight back against attackers, they just can't deploy them elsewhere. Only nations with expeditionary capability have armies that can actually
Our
move.
presence is growing.
Fantastic, so we have Mexico. So what you'll see here is the armies are basically fighting. This is an occupation bar, so it's 8% occupied. We've taken about 9% damage on both of our armies. What that's telling me is that this is going to be quite close, and that this would be a lot better if I had brought the United States into the party.
Ready to go.
Speaking of which, I'm going to get up to, I've got up to 20% on the
Standing
United
by.
States, and
Ready
unfortunately
for
my
my
person who can do
Standing
public
by for
relations
orders.
in order to make me more popular in the US is kind of in
Standing
prison
by.
at the moment. So Antonella can get who's our best influencer, can get started in Russia.
We'll bring this nation to our side.
Reporting in.
If we're going to be doing that,
Where
we need to
to?
keep the costs down, so we'll do
What's the
more
up?
unifications in the European
Lending
Union.
my expertise.
What's the op?
And I'll also... Yeah, we'll
Bringing them on.
Orban loves the EU, man. Orban
Ready to go.
wants to be part of the combined European Union, so
I will help them.
we'll grab Hungary. Oh shit, I advised the EU instead of setting policy, but that's okay. We're just going to keep an eye on this because we don't want to accidentally lose any of our armies in the process. But it looks like we're doing okay. So we're unlocking new projects. I'm not going to dwell on what each of them does. More alien ships are arriving to do
Got our
who knows
people in
what.
place.
Okay, another one's crash landed on Earth, so apparently
We've
what it's
gained
doing is crash
significant
landing.
Support.
And we have got our first CP in Russia. Someone else has grabbed one in Russia, which is good. That's kind of perfect.
At your service.
Ready.
So now we're gonna
Ready for my
make the
mission.
full play. We're gonna play for.
Establishing our presence.
We're
What
basically
do
gonna go for all the Russia points that we
orders?
can at this point. Oh, that's expensive for a not very
Where do
good
you need me?
chance. You can see the difference, just a few fewer stat
Ready
points
for my
makes.
mission.
Antonella really is really helpful. And I don't see any organizations available that would help us. It's just going to have to be her, I think, in terms of breaking into Russia, so good luck to us.
Standing by.
Reporting in.
And set national policy
On my way to the
to do
capital.
2 more unifications
I'm
because
here.
I am trying to speedrun it. Oh, and Vincenar has been released, so actually Vincenar is going to set
On
national
my way
policy.
to the capital.
Rowena
What's the op?
has a very important job. Convince the Americans
We'll
to
make
like
our
me,
appeal.
please. No, Rowena cannot make the Americans like me.
Acknowledged.
And the reason she cannot
Standing by for orders.
is because she's
Where
non
do you need
grata. Her home state is China. She is non grata, which means she cannot operate in territory of nations that are rivals with China, which unfortunately includes the United States. So there goes that plan. I think we'll public campaign in Russia is the best I can think
I will
of.
tell our story.
I'm gonna have real difficulty brute forcing my way into Russia, but that's okay. Super heavy chemical rockets unlocks a whole bunch of ship components. We're not going to talk about shipbuilding this episode. For now, I'm just going to say that it increases boost income by 10%. Apologies. Alright, let's keep going. How are we going? We are 41% occupied. We have taken a little bit less than 40% damage, so it's going to be close, but we should be able to pull this off.
Public sentiment is increasingly with us.
Okay, so we won an extra 9% of public opinion in Russia. That's good.
Policy direction complete.
We'll set this to Peru and Utopia, so the EU's economy is doing what I want. And we will bring the Hungarians
Mission complete.
and the Czechs into the EU, which brings our GDP to 17.9 billion and our research to 529.
Taking over.
We have 2 CPs in Russia, including the executive. Okay, so Russia is 50-50 controlled. We control the security apparatus and we control the executive. The Academy controls the United Russia Party and the national industries, but that's okay. We have the executive, which means we control foreign relations, and we have our finger on this button, which controls this. This and the executive in the United States are the 2 most important CPs in the game. Anyone who controls one of these CPs has the ability to end the world at any time, and if it's someone who might want to end the world, well, that's a bad thing. What are we at? We're gonna manage.
Reporting
We are
in.
going to manage. So at this point, we're starting to look pretty damn good. I could start taking 20% success chance rolls at the United States. I can get just a little bit extra bonus by grabbing the
Bringing
last
them
Mexican
on
control
board.
point
Ready.
and
Ready.
the last Canadian control point. So that's probably a
Taking
no-brainer.
control.
That'll put just a little bit of extra pressure
Ready
on the
to
United
go.
States.
Ready for orders.
And again, continue bringing
to the
that
capital.
maintenance cost down by continuing
Where do
to
you need
swallow
me?
more nations into the European Union. Vincenar can inspect
Headed
the
there.
crashed alien site. So we're unlocking a lot of good chemical rocketry at this point. Interplanetary chemical rocketry is again pretty cheap, and we're looking at things that increase this boost income. Because sooner or later you're going to want to start building space stations, you're going to want to go to the moon, potentially go to other bodies, and all of that consumes boost, because everything that goes has to be lifted into orbit or produced there, and at the start of the game you can't produce anything in orbit. We've got a hurricane in the European Union. You get lots of these events, so we can either do nothing, which is cheap but it damages the EU, or we can give them money and ops, including 20 of our 28 ops, in order to reduce the amount of damage but give us a lot of significant opinion boost, which we'll do. So that brings it up to a point where 48% of EU citizens support the resistance. Fantastic. Completed interplanetary chemical rockets. So I think the next point is to do reusable rockets, just pile on the boost bonuses. Russia will give us some boost, but we're going to need Kazakhstan at some point in order to get access to its boost. It produces most of what you would think of as Russia's boost. It's actually the Soviet Union built all its space facilities in Kazakhstan. So right now, the Academy
complete.
is getting benefit of all that. We'll unify with Denmark, which brings our project nearly to an end. We've taken control of Belgrade, and congratulations, Serbia, you are now a proud member of our growing centralized European state. So now that I've sufficiently terrified many of the citizens in the EU, I've reversed Brexit and I'm leading Britain towards full integration with a centralized European state. The Europeans, so the British and the French, have invaded Serbia and brought it into its rightful home in the EU. I've got my control over the nuclear button in Russia. I am well behind on the core objectives. I have no influence pretty much anywhere else in the world, but what I do have is I built, in relatively short order, a secondary superpower that sort of serves as a proxy to the United States and China. I don't know if this is the best strategy. It's sort of high risk, it's a bit finicky, but if you exploit the bonuses between neighbors and federations and claim CPs in the right order and do what I did in terms of blocking people off, this is a pretty good speed run, I think, in terms of forming a nation that gives you pretty good output across the board. Next episode, I'll talk about more of the features about how I manage the economy, how it works in this game, and how you get resources. But the point is, I wanted to pull together a nation that produces research and money and gives me nukes and military resources relatively quickly, but which was easier to take hold of than the United States and China, which are really heavily resistant to attempts by factions to influence them, especially at the start of the game. And this is what I came up with: rapidly unifying the European Union by working away from small nations to big nations. So, this is Terra Invicta. And remember, the bit that I've showed off at this strategy layer where you're managing politics and public opinion and whatnot in the world, A, we've barely gotten into it, and B, remember this is an alien invasion game, and while I've been playing geopolitics for this entire episode, there's a big-ass world out there that we have yet to explore or even think about, and I haven't even looked at where the alien bases are or where they're setting up or what's going on there. I'm just focusing on those immediate actions. So I'm really hyped for this game. I hope everyone else is hyped too. I am going to put a few videos up showing off a few of these features, talking through some of the things that I've identified, a couple of strategies that I've come up with that you might want to try out when the demo comes around. Other than that, thank you for watching as always, and I'll see you again soon.